So speaking of conversations, CNN's doctor, Sanjay Gupta, got on Joe Rogan this week for a little over 3 hour podcast, I believe.
Yeah, it's a long one.
I've gotten through part of it, not all of it. Most of his are about that long. They're usually about 2 hours. 2 to 4 hours is probably pretty average for him.
I can do like a couple of hours. Like that works for me.
It really depends on the conversation for me. This one, I think I could listen to the whole thing all the way through if I've got the time. If I can just keep doing stuff at house and I'm not reading or doing something that requires at least one other part of my brain to be functioning. Because that's just how I am. But so they go on to this conversation, and CNN's framing him as like this hero that, quote unquote, went into the lion's den. And
is that what they said?
Yes.
Like he went into the lion's den?
Yeah, that's on one of their articles.
Okay, well then, I mean, to be fair,
actually, you can find the video, but he goes into the lion's den. By the way, the CNN video, because they cut out the part that's probably the most damning on them, and we'll get to that in a second. But their video got 8.5 thousand likes to 32,000 dislikes.
CNN's just not doing well in its ratings, from what I'm aware of.
No, it's not doing good. It's not doing good at all. But just to take a few parts out of it from the different clips that I could find, something that I found interesting that Sanjay said is that he doesn't know that he's ever talked to anybody, no breaks, no distractions, no phones for 3 hours before. But he thinks that that's how you get some of these good, real conversations. Which
he's right about.
He is right. It's the part that he says he doesn't think he has, and he stated it multiple times. He stated again,
kind of conversations are the ones that you just are kind of focused and dialed in for a few hours. And
yeah, well, according to him, he hasn't done that. And he stated again, he's like, I don't think I've ever spoken to another human for 3 hours before. It was really something. And he also claims that it was a lot of mental gymnastics on Rogan's part, which I think what it comes down to is Sanjay seems to be regurgitating a lot of the data, but then he kind of shrugs off the anomalies in the data. Israel, as far as vaccinations go, they're mostly vaccinated country, and they still had their biggest COVID case spike in August, September. And the trend seems to be following some of the flu seasons. Yeah, he seems to be ignoring some of that and shrugging it off. He's like, well, it's pretty much his bottom line is that it's mostly safe and that Rogan should get it. And Rogan's resoundingly pretty much just told him, no, I'm not getting it.
Right.
Because Rogan believes that because he got COVID naturally, he's got natural antibodies, and those are going to be, there's either more of, or they're stronger or longer lasting than what the vaccines have. That's not entirely clear yet from the studies that I can find. I will point out that Project Veritas in their part 4 for COVID exposing is Nick Carl, who's a biochemist of Pfizer, admitted to an undercover reporter that you have stronger immunity if you received it naturally by contracting the virus compared to the vaccine antibodies. And 2 other Pfizer vaccines have admitted the same thing in other undercover Project Veritas videos. So we've got a couple of, this seems that Pfizer's really just getting hit here with these, but we've got engineers and biochemists saying that no, you're better off if you got COVID and went through it. And arguably maybe the best combination is to have the vaccine, because you've got a specific part of the virus and then you get COVID. So your symptoms are not as bad, but then you get the more robust natural antibodies.
Yeah,
but we're going to need more research on that.
For sure.
Not a doctor, not a biochemist, not giving anybody medical advice here. Y'all do what you want. But this particular interview is interesting because CNN, a couple months ago when Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster in the world as far as I know, there might be one other that got past him, but biggest podcaster in the world caught COVID, and his doctors prescribed him ivermectin, monoclonal antibodies, and a bunch of other vitamins and stuff. Like his doctor's like, you're sick. We're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at you. And he got better in a couple of days and was back to it. And Rogan's in his, I want to say he's in his 50s.
He's not like a spring chicken or anything.
No, he's not, but he's super fit, works out, takes care of himself, eats well.
Right.
All of that stuff. But CNN wrote an article saying that Joe Rogan went and took horse dewormer, which was not true. And they were referring to ivermectin, which is, it's used for a variety of parasitic infections and other conditions. Mm-hmm. Now, you said you had a hard time pronouncing these words. Onchocerciasis and river blindness are two of the other ones. And it's also used as a horse dewormer. But the thing is this particular drug is used for people. It's used for animals. And they just labeled it as an animal drug and was like, Joe Rogan went to Tractor Supply and got himself some ivermectin horse paste and took it. And no, he got it prescribed by his doctor. What would
encourage them to just give out such a blatant lie?
I don't know. And Sanjay didn't know either because Rogan cornered him on it and wouldn't let him. And he's just like, why would your network lie about that? And Sanjay is just like, let's see. Let's find his exact quote here.
He said, I don't know. They shouldn't have done that.
Pretty much. Yeah. Rogan was asking him, does it bother you that the news network you work for outright lied about me taking horse dewormer? And like, why would they do that? And like I said, Sanjay replies like, I don't know. They shouldn't have done it. And Joe Rogan's like, you didn't ask? And Sanjay just said, I didn't ask and I should have asked before coming on the podcast. Actually, Sanjay, you should have asked when they published the dang article.
Well, you have to be committed to representing people as truthfully as you can. And that to me was so far from the truth about what really happened. And I think I saw like a clip with Don Lemon and Sanjay, right?
Yep.
With Sanjay, and it felt like Don Lemon, and I think the clip is out there so you can go find it somewhere, but almost like trying to like explain how the article wasn't wrong and like, well, technically it was correct and technically
that's exactly what he did. He says, Sanjay is ivermectin used for horse deworming? Yes, it is. Well, then the article wasn't a lie.
It just feels like 10-year-olds like playing a game of like, well, it wasn't really a lie, and these are like grown men. Well, I mean, they are grown men, but they're
in this case they're acting more like boys. It's
really childish.
And the thing is like every clip you watch with other like co-hosts from CNN that Sanjay is doing this with, you can tell they all have a really negative perception of Rogan. Of
course they do, because the man speaks his mind.
Yeah, and the thing is, Rogan is he's your average dude.
That's what's so interesting about him, is that he is just kind of an average guy.
He's an average guy. He's asking average questions that you and me would ask, that the little snippets of people in their little like 60-second clips on news media don't ask.
Right.
And then they can't explain because sometimes it takes more than 60 seconds. So I would recommend people go listen to the podcast because it's fun to listen to Rogan go after us, because you don't get to see it very often when the media just straight up lies about what you did.
Yeah. I mean, I do think they got the article right when they said that he did really go into the lion's den, because I think Rogan did a good job.
A little bit.
From what I could see, I'm just being honest, I did not watch the full 3 hours.
Oh yeah,
I did
no,
not
I know
do
you
that. Connor and I've had many conversations. There's not enough time in the day to to listen to every single podcast out there. But
yeah, but this is really telling. In Sanjay's article, though, if you want to get an idea of what they think about Rogan, this paragraph in his article sums it up pretty well. So on CNN, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, why Joe Rogan and I sat down and talked for more than 3 hours.
That's incredible.
It really seems to bug
incredible.
him.
It does seem to bug him.
It really seems to bug him that he talked for 3 hours with another human being without looking at his phone or
and without someone that you disagree with, too.
And somebody with you disagree with. And that person didn't kill him or try to beat him up, as he states in this paragraph, where he says many of his friends cautioned him against accepting Joe's invitation. There is little room for reasonable conversations anymore, one person told him. He is a brawler and doesn't play fair, another warned. In fact, when I told Joe early in the podcast that I didn't agree with his apparent views on vaccines against COVID, ivermectin, and many things in between, part of me thought the MMA former Taekwondo champion might hurtle himself across the table and throttle my neck. But instead he smiled and off we went. Okay. That's their perception of him.
But there's a broader point here, right? The broader point here is that they have such a misconception of not just Joe Rogan, but anyone who believes something different than they do. They are genuinely deceived into thinking,
because Joe's not necessarily conservative either.
No, he's not. It's just anyone that disagrees with the established narrative. They're like, well, they must be bad people. They must be horrible people. And here's the thing that really bothers me with people that I disagree with. It's not that I disagree with them. It's that I feel like I give them the benefit of the doubt, where I'm like, I can see that there's some good intentions here. Now, granted, good intentions don't always mean good results, but whatever. I do believe you have good intentions. But when you hear something like this, like, he genuinely probably thought that, Joe Rogan, he must be just that bad that he would try to attack me and assault me
because we have differing views on this.
But that's kind of I think there's a broader point to be made there, is that I think that's something that a lot of people on the left genuinely believe about people that disagree with them, not just conservatives, although I think conservatives are getting targeted quite a bit more. Like, I don't feel like I'm given the benefit of the doubt. I'm just, if I don't believe that a child shouldn't be allowed to mutilate their body, that I must be a horrible person. It's like, well, hang on, no, like, let's talk about it. Like, hear me out and see that I care and I have compassion too. And I think I might be coming from this, in my opinion, in a better way, that I actually protect children from mutilating themselves for the rest of their lives. And so when I read this, like, it's so laughable, but it's so serious to think that that's how they see people on the other side, as genuinely dangerous.
Yeah,
that's
dangerous
bothersome.
Or just stupid, as we've seen with a lot of celebrities and athletes that have come out and stated that they're not getting the vaccine. We had the Nicki Minaj tweets, and then she got banned off Twitter, and now she doesn't want to touch the platform. So
Nicki Minaj is not like a liberal. Excuse me, she's not a conservative person. She's very liberal. And then there was Rihanna, who came out with the "Think While It's Still Legal" shirt. There was a model that came out, and her name is actually hard to pronounce. I need to actually find it.
Yeah, and while you find that, there's been I think at least one NBA player who said he's not against vaccines, but he's against mandating the vaccines, and so he won't get it, and they're telling him he can't play because of it.
Yeah.
And actually, the actress for Shuri, I think I'm saying that right, from Black Panther, his younger sister, she also has come out with anti-COVID vaccination tweets. And so I was like, but the ridicule that these people are getting as either anti-science or deniers, or that they're just plain dumb, we saw a little bit of it first when Kanye West decided to support Trump and go against the party that he'd been a part of. But then they called him an Uncle Tom and all these other awful things. But then
he ran for himself, Kanye 2020, right?
He did, Kanye 2024.
Oh my God, I don't want to be president, but I do appreciate his efforts. But yeah, he did. Kanye West did start kind of a movement. It's like, hey, you can think how you want. You can be black and vote for, someone who's not a Democrat. Like,
and then they just get ousted by their circles and called all these awful things.
But Kanye's like still a billionaire though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, he's doing fine. He's
got fantastic business models and business ideas, and it's not my type of music, but I know a lot of people that really enjoy his music. I've heard a few songs that I'm good with, but yeah, overall he's doing fine.
Yeah.
But all these other people, like, I don't know how it's going to work for the actors and actresses that say they're not getting it. It's the athletes are being told they can't play, so
yeah.
I don't know what to think of it at that point.